My name is Madeline Slaybaugh. I'm a member of the Elliott Mazie Learning Under 30 conference this year. Thank you all for having me. I'm very excited and honored to introduce our speaker this morning, Mr. Donald Taylor. Mr. Donald Taylor has been with Learning for quite a while. He is a leader and a maverick in this area, especially in the world of technology. So he has a passion around the intersection between business and technology, ensuring that our consultants, our learners, and our leaders have the skills that they need to be successful. In 2001, he spearheaded an online learning technology and has taken that to a whole new level and has become a business leader in the world, as well as an international consultant and speaker in the world of workplace learning. I'm very excited to introduce him to you this morning. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Donald. I will share we're going to speak for about 40 minutes this morning and then have about 20 minutes for Q&A afterwards. So with that, very honored. Donald, please come to the stage.
Thank you very much, Madeline. Thank you. No, I'm going to shake your hand. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Madeline. It is great to be here. Very honored to be invited to be on this absolutely enormous stage. Madeline referred to the fact that I've been around for a while. I have. I started as before I talk about myself, let's talk about us. Can you just put your hand in the air? If you've been in the learning and development field for up to 1 year, can you put your hand up, please? Okay. Welcome. We need you and your enthusiasm and vitality. 1 year to 15 years. It's got to be most people. Okay. More than 15 years. Whoa! And you know, for us, just getting our arms in the air, that's an achievement. So well done, everybody. Thank you very much. I have been in the field for actually twice as long as that, 30 years. I started in 1981 as a computer programmer, became a stand-up trainer in 1987, and that means, I did the math last night and was slightly appalled, it means that when I started training, every one of the people in the 30 under 30 group had yet to be born. That is scary. I don't know if that makes them feel wise or just plain old. But my idea is to come here today and try to share some of what I've picked up over those years and take that, let's say, 30 years of experience and boil it down to 40 minutes. 40 minutes in which I'm going to try to convey quite a lot with a combination of stories and facts to help you build this learning and development department of the future. The summary is pretty simple. Our relationship with information is very different to what it used to be. It's changed, and that's crucial. It is more available than it ever was. It is more crucial to our work than it's ever been in the past, and we can get hold of it far easier, and there's more of it. That means there's a fantastic opportunity. Learning is more important in work than it ever was before. And Shakespeare, well, in Julius Caesar, Cassius, being penned by Shakespeare, says, "There is a tide in the affairs of men which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune." I think that's where we are right now. By the way, you can tell I'm British. That's London. That was Shakespeare. There's going to be a whole bunch of London, British references throughout that. You know, bit of a change from being in this glorious situation in Florida. I tell you what, the weather here is so much better. I was very glad to get away. I'm going to take you back from this glorious picture of the sun coming up over London on the summer solstice day, 21st of June this year, back 20 years, 25 years to 1993, at this time, just before lunch, in this month, November, 25 years ago, what was I doing? I was in a factory running a training course, Excel 3. Yeah, I know, you don't believe it, it did exist. And I would have been getting up to lunchtime. That morning, I would have set up 12 computers, which were not networked, using a floppy disk. At the end of the day, I would collect in my black and white acetates. Madeline, they're like bits of plastic with pictures on. You won't know. And I would get in my car, from the overhead projector, I would drive home. It's a different world now. It just seems mad that we ever did things that way. Some things, though, haven't changed. And that's what's important about that story. This is a factory. This is not the factory I was working in, and I'll tell you why at the end. But the factory was a classic manufacturing. They had an in-gate, they had an out-gate. Stuff came in the in-gate, they made transatlantic cables, and those came out through the out-gate. And it was on the banks of the River Thames. And they viewed learning in the same way as a process. You had the headquarters office, you had the manufactory buildings, and way on the other side of the car park, in an old building that wasn't used for anything else for a bit, was the training department. Yeah, familiar, a lot of nodding heads going on. And people went in there just like things came in the in-gate. And they came out of the training department just like things came out of the out-gate. And when they came out of the training department, their heads were full and they were ready to go to work. And that was the plan, and that was the view we had of training. And you know what? It was the only way probably we could do it then. Could you do a day's course in Excel now? I don't think so. Nobody's going to wait till 2:30 in the afternoon to get to me explaining the if function. They're going to Google it, aren't they? Curse them and their modern internet ways. And that's exactly what they should do. And not all businesses are reacting to this change in the flow and the ease of access of information in the same way. So I want to talk very quickly about the wider world of work, then drill down to what does this mean for learning and development, how does this affect us. I'm going to take a big picture view of L&D, then I'm going to drill down on some real tactical stuff about what skills I think we need for the future. So, very quickly, how is the rest of the world reacting to this rapid, changing world that we're living in? You know Amazon. Back in the 90s, Amazon was just a new thing, and publishers were very happy to hand their books over to Amazon to sell as a new route to market. What Amazon knew was they weren't in the book-selling business. They were in the data business. They took the books, they sold them, they got a very good deal on it. But what they didn't do was give the information, the data, back to the publishers. They sat on that, they analyzed it, and that's how they made their millions. Waterstones is a great book chain in the UK. They've just reissued their loyalty card so they can start collecting information on customers. It's only like 25 years too late, but they're doing it, and I get an email every month from Waterstones with an update, and it's every week, and it's good stuff. They are doing, in a bespoke, focused way, what Amazon's been doing for 20 years. Marks & Spencer, classic British brand, on the high street, retail, bring out a new season of clothes every 6 months, 134 years old. The chairman, Archie Norman, recently said we have no God-given right to be on the high street, and they just closed down 100 stores because they can't get the revenue coming through. Zara, in contrast, can take an idea that one of their people has spotted on the street, turn it around, get it manufactured, get it out on the street, in the stores being sold in 2 weeks, because they have an extremely agile approach to information gathering, design, production, distribution, and retail. That is our story of the modern world. Data is where you win, agility is where you win, and that's what the companies we work for are doing. If we want to be successful, I would say we need to be doing the same thing in L&D. Deloitte and lots of other people have similar stories to tell in their reports, and you should all read these reports and the PwC ones and so on. You can read this for yourself, but the key thing they're saying is move fast, adapt quickly, and get rid of legacy ideas. All these ideas, by the way, all these slides have the source at the bottom, by the way. The slide deck is also, of course, on the hub, so you can download it from the app. And at the end, there's a URL where you'll be able to download further thoughts and links from me. So we need to change, but what does change mean? Typically, we think about change as being a continuum. You can change fast, or you can change slow. I think for L&D, we have to reconsider this and think about how fast we're changing in relation to the rest of the business. So there's 2 axes here. Up and down, how fast is learning and development changing? Left and right, how fast is the organization changing? So top right corner, if we're changing fast and the organization is changing fast, well, I think we're in a position of learning leadership. Maybe we make some mistakes, they're changing, we're changing, but we're moving forward at the same pace. We're being agile. Other corner, diametrically opposite, nothing's happening too much. The organization says, hey, just give us that schedule of courses you gave us last year. Tweak it a bit, maybe add in something about data. Publish that. That's very nice. It's very easy until something goes wrong, and something will go wrong. Because up there in the top corner, we've got, I don't know, Instagram being bought by Facebook for $1 billion when it was just 12 employees. In the other corner, of course, what we've got is Kodak inventing personal photography and being unable to respond fast enough to the marketplace. It's comfortable, it's going to go wrong. That's the zone of comfortable extinction. The other corner is quite frustrating. You often get people there who know what needs to change in the organization, but the organization won't change fast enough with us. And in that case, I say it's a bit like in the Gospels, in Matthew, I think it says that a prophet is always honored except in his own country. You know these people, you may be one. They're the unacknowledged prophets. These are people who will come to a conference, hear great ideas, go back to work, and at work, all they want to do is what you were doing before you went to the conference. But I've got these great ideas. Yeah, that's fine. Just give us the same courses. And that's frustrating. You can get out of it. You have to find someone who'll shout for you, or you change job. What about the other corner? The other corner, the organization's changing fast, we're not, and it's frustrating. It's not the fault of the people usually in the training department or the learning and development department. Usually the issue here is that we have been stuck in that classroom on the other side of the car park, nobody's listening, and they want us to just do the process stuff. The exciting things are all happening elsewhere. Maybe marketing has a wiki. Maybe the sales team are using social media. Maybe the leadership have decided they're going to get together and do lunch bag sessions to swap ideas around. All of these could valuably have input from the learning and development department. But we're cut out from it because we're trapped in what I call the training ghetto. It's a weird place which is just different and isolated from the rest of the organization. And when I describe this to people, they want to know how they can get out of that space. And I'm going to spend the rest of this talk talking about how we can move from a position of being trapped where we're not able to do what we should be doing to a position of learning leadership. By the way, one of the most important ways of getting out of that is to give yourself time. And the way to give yourself time, in my book, is to stop writing courses. Bit controversial. I know a lot of people at this event are talking about how to make great materials. My thesis will be, and we'll discuss this as we go on, there's a lot of content already out there. Outside the organization, inside the organization, use that first, and only as a last resort, produce anything. That way we can get out of it. Okay, so one way we often get out, or try to get out of this, or we think we're going to get out of it, is by resorting to technology. I run a survey. Every year I ask people the world over what's hot in learning and development, and this is the 5th year I've run it. These are the results for this year. I just want you to have a look at the top 3 here. We know that in our organizations, when I was talking about this flow of information being important, personalization is important and collaboration are important. We know those two things, and they have been number one for the last few years. The position hasn't changed since last year. Number 3, though, I think is crucial here, artificial intelligence. It's a sort of thing we're excited about, but we're not quite sure typically how to use it. I just want to talk during this presentation very briefly, when we get to content, about how I think AI can transform what we're doing, buy us back that time that we're spending on writing courses, and get us out of the ghetto and into learning leadership. By the way, launched yesterday. My research is a quick look at what's hot, and it's a sentiment survey. If you really want to understand what's going on in learning technology, I totally recommend checking out Red Thread Research. I have no financial or other in relationship with them. They just do a good job. They launched this yesterday, Red Thread Research. It's a great view of the vendor space with learning technology, and it's a fantastic interactive tool, plus a report you can get. At this point, you'll be expecting me to say, and look, by the way, guys, here is my view of what the learning ecosystem should be. I am going to say that, but it's not going to be quite the answer I suspect you might want. The learning ecosystem that a lot of people will talk about, quite rightly, involves a lot of technology. I've chaired the Learning Technology Conference in London since 2000. I believe in technology, but I take it for granted that miracles are going to happen when we use technology. It can do great things in the right hands. Fantastic. But it's never enough. So if you search for learning ecosystem, you're going to get all this stuff. And you can see by the Google icon, I took that photograph, I took that screenshot this morning. Please go and vote. You'll see some familiar names on here. You can see Degreed, you can see Fosway, you can see Training Industry. They're all great organizations. There is a wealth of information out there about the technological side of a learning ecosystem. Super. Go and check it out. But an ecosystem is not just about machinery. It's not just about the XAPI or the web services we use to transfer data from one place to another. Yes, you need to get that done. You probably don't have the skills internally. We'll talk about how you get those skills in a minute. First of all, let's talk about something rather more important. What on earth are we doing here? It's a bit existential to be asking this question at 11:30 in the morning, but I think it's a serious question. If we're talking about what we want to be doing for our learning and development department for the future, I think we need to know what it is that gets us out of bed in the morning. What's the role of learning and development? This is St. Paul's in London. And you'll have heard this story in different guises. This wooden church burnt down in 1666 in the Great Fire. So Christopher Wren, the architect of the new building, is walking through the building. He sees 3 masons at work, and he says to the first one, "What are you doing?" The man replies, "I'm carving a gargoyle." Says to the second one, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm making 2 shillings a week for my family." And he says to the third one, "What are you doing?" He doesn't look up, and he says, "I'm building a cathedral." That's what I'm asking. Not what do we do day to day, but what's our big picture? Why do we get out of bed and do stuff? And for me, the answer is very straightforward, and it hasn't changed, and it will never change, no matter how much technology we get our hands on. We help individuals and organizations fulfill their potential. Individuals and organizations. What promise have they got? Yeah, let's make it happen. Great, that's the big picture. But you know, when I get out of bed in the morning, it's inspirational, but I need to know, well, what's the plan for this month? I can't go in waving a banner all the time. What's my plan for this month? What are my objectives? If I get my blueprint and I spread it out, again, I don't think the objectives have changed. I think we do 3 things in learning and development. We build long-term capability. We enable short-term performance. And we create supporting foundations for that. By the way, this is my belief based on those 30 years I was talking about. Of course you can disagree, but if you're working with your team, if you're building a department for the future, please answer these questions and inspire your team. And when I say this, I think we know about capability. We work on human capital management with the organization. I think we know about performance, and there are great things at this event about performance. Foundations is a bit trickier. The organizational foundation might be we need a platform that supports everything, but it might also be we need a learning culture in our organization. How can we create that? That's a foundation for the learning for the future. And at the individual level, a supporting foundation is definitely helping people learn and understand better. We don't do enough of that. Anyway, our goal is clear. I think our objectives are clear. Those haven't changed. What has changed is what we do when we're actually carving our gargoyles. We don't do that. We don't do the same things we used to do. We are not standing in front of a class delivering XL3 to people on non-networked machines. It's very different. So our big picture's the same. The local picture is different. What is this? It's a library. It's a beautiful library. It's Strachov Monastery Library in Prague, and there's a catch. It's not a library anymore. It's a museum. It's beautiful, but nobody takes the books off the shelf anymore. It's a bit sad. Of course, they can access all that information over the internet. This is our previous model. Beautiful, wonderful, inspirational at times, but it's not our job to create content anymore, I don't think. I'm going to talk you through content for 5 or 10 minutes, because I think this is a crucial part of what we do in the future and what we don't do in the future. It used to be you had 3 sources of content. You made it internally, and that was what we did most of the time, or perhaps if you wanted something really good, you sourced it from outside, or you went and got stuff that was freely available. I think that's changed. I think we've now got a more complicated way of getting information out to people. Our content is externally commissioned and can be created internally, and we can get that freely available stuff, typically from the internet. In the middle, though, you've got generic outsourced libraries. You know what that's like. You buy a catalog. Great. But above that, there's that big fat wedge in the middle, which we don't do enough work with. Curated content sets. That's when somebody comes into you and says, you know what? You want to do sales training? Well, I've got a TED Talk, I've got a book, I've got this, I've got that. I've put them all together in the right format and content and delivery mechanism for you, and I think it matches these jobs that you've got internally. People are doing that now. I won't mention the names of the companies, but they're doing a good job doing it. Because you bring the content in from outside, it saves us the time, we're not trapped in the ghetto, and we're able to take a more strategic view. User-generated content, you know what user-generated content is, but there's lots of different types that we probably don't deal with enough, and I'm going to look at that in just a second. Just to make the point that you can have this information sourced inside the organization or sourced outside it, but there's a bit in the middle which is both inside and outside that I'm interested in. Just want to take a step back before I look at user-generated content and ask this question. Good Practice, based in Scotland, in the UK, do a great job of doing annual research into how people actually learn. They observe people, they do questionnaires, and they work out what's actually going on in the workplace when people are learning. And they have this, of 3 annual reports, I've taken out 1 slide from 1 report. I recommend going and checking out their research. They've asked this question to managers. The Secret Online Lives of Managers, the report is called. Yes, there's nothing kinky about it, sir. They asked this question. What websites do you prefer to go to? Relevant, easy to find, credible, easy to use, reliable, attractive. Easily, the most frequently visited sites were the ones that were relevant. Now it sounds obvious, but I don't think we take that answer nearly seriously enough. It's relevant. It helps me do my job better. I don't care, honestly, if it looks good or bad. That was one of the least important criteria. It has to be easy to find, absolutely for sure, but most of all, make sure it's relevant. All right, where should it be produced from? Do I care if it's internal or external? Well, here's a bit of research that a company that I'm a non-executive director for in the UK, Filtered, does. They've got a client, and they are using AI to help the client's individual workers find content. And they give them a choice of a range of assets. In this case, let's say there's 450 assets. They've gone back and done some analysis. Which assets are more looked at and which assets are less frequently looked at? The assets that have been produced internally are looked at an average of 4.2 times over this period of the research. The external assets, 2.4 times. Now that seems to be contradicting what I'm saying. I'm saying go and get stuff from the outside. Well, what I'm saying is go and get stuff from the outside and make sure it's very good. The point about the external assets here is that they were all very highly produced bits of content, like TED Talks. The internal assets were much rougher, but again, extremely relevant. So I think what this is telling us is not so much it's got to be internal, but it's got to be authentic, it's got to be real, it's got to help me do my job. They wouldn't have known about this if this client hadn't been using an AI system for recommendation. They wouldn't have known about it if they hadn't done the analysis on it. And I want to introduce you to somebody you all know, Francis Bacon, who popularized the term knowledge is power, scientia potentia est. He was writing in Latin, obviously, at the time. Knowledge is power in the past, for us, used to mean we're going to go and find out everything there is to know about something. We're going to collect that information, we're going to make a great-looking course, and we're going to deliver it. And this, for me, is the crux of this whole presentation. It doesn't mean that anymore. Because guess what? Almost certainly, it can be found somewhere online. The only case where that isn't true is where we've got the secret source, the tacit information, the knowledge inside people's head, the stuff in your organization that makes it different and successful. That stuff is gold dust. Get hold of that, get that out into your workers, and you'll be making a substantial difference. And that's why the guys preferred the internal content. because it was real to them and it helped them do their jobs better. And that's why I said earlier, let's talk about AI. AI is the perfect way of finding and categorizing and distributing this information. Francis Bacon said knowledge is power. Perhaps more familiarly, Lou Platt of HP said, if only HP knew what HP knows, we'd be 3 times more productive. He was just saying much more eloquently than I just spent 2 minutes talking about, let's get this stuff out there. How do we do it? I've got an example for you. It's a very simple example. I know organizations that are doing this, but perhaps unsurprisingly, organizations are a little reluctant somehow to share how they're fixing problems internally. So I'm going to show you an example that I've generated on the web in the public domain. I do a lot of talking. I've been around a long time. I know lots of people. I've got like 11,000 people following me on LinkedIn. And sometimes I try to put that network to good. Somebody mails me and says, Don, I've got a real problem with something. Can you help me out? I say, yes. I'll anonymize it, stick it up as a comment, and let's see what the network says. Sadly, although I was an expert standing in front of people talking about Excel 30 years ago, I have come to realize that I do not, I know it's hard to believe, know everything. And I realize that I've got a network of people who are fantastic. Hey, let's ask them the question. So, I've got a friend. You don't have to read all this. She had a real problem. She's smart, she's working for a good company. The company managers are convinced they know what they want. Long story short, her manager was saying to her, I want to have this type of training. All the research shows it doesn't work. But the manager says they want it. What do I do? There's a few nodding heads here. Yeah, I've been there. How do we stop these people demanding this nonsense? Well, guess what? I put it out there. Within 2 weeks, what have we got? 88 comments, shared 24,000 times. That is brilliant. My friend came back to me and said, Don, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. I've really got something from that. And to be fair to her, she was saying, I've learned how I need to change my behavior, and perhaps I'm not approaching things the right way, and there are some skills I can use in dealing with the managers. Great. That's nice for one person. But this is a really common problem. So what you do is you run an algorithm on it. You go through those 88 comments, you find what's happening, and you find the common causes. And filtered, the guys that I'm the non-exec for, they ran the algorithm. They found that were basically 5 buckets plus other that the answers fell into. I love, by the way, on this one, I love challenge. Don't accept it. Stick to your guns, tell them you're the expert, and hold your nerve. I love that as an answer. By the way, everyone in this room, I think that's a great thing to do. Don't come back to me, by the way, if the result is that you lose your job. That's not something I can be culpable for. The point is, this data all came out of running an algorithm on the results. It was only 88 comments. You could do it automatically. You can actually do that manually. Everywhere in every organization that we're represented in this room, you've got people sharing comments, and I do this all the time on webinars. You have a conversation, bang, the chat fills up with people sharing great stuff. It's there. We've got it captured in electronic format, run an algorithm on it, find out what the common themes are, and then get it out there. My next step is going to be next week. I'm going to post it and say, X, the woman who asked me to share this question, got value from it. Well, here are the common themes. Here's my top line advice to you, and click on these 5 links if you want to go off and find more information that will help you get further down. That's not a library. That's curation. It's curation with AI and human intent. It's a bit like it's a bit messy. There's no clear edges to it. We don't necessarily produce something that looks beautiful, but it's incredibly valuable. And sadly, I think rather than producing content, this business of, and I'm stressing curation for 2 reasons. First, I think it represents a combination of different things that are important. But secondly, if we do this, it buys us time to do other things rather than producing courses. But it's one skill we need to have. There are other skills as well. I chair an institute. The institute is the Learning and Performance Institute, and last month we launched our capability map. It's the second iteration of something we launched in 2012, 25 skills which are, according to a crowdsourced consultative period that involved 50 experts over 13 countries, 11 time zones. We pulled all that thinking together, we came up with these 25 skills. They're ranged over 4 levels, and if you go through there, and if you go and check this out, you'll find, and the URL's at the bottom there, you'll find that there are ways you can put this information to use that really help you understand where are you with your department and where could you be developing your people more. It's free, by the way, I should say that. Your individuals can go and use this for free. There's no charge involved, and we are committed as an institute to making this available for free on an individual basis. So you'd get a survey report out of it, and if you're a member, you also get a benchmark report that shows you how you stand against the overall pattern. And if you want to, you could either work with us or by yourselves, you could go further and start doing the sort of thing that I think we should be doing for ourselves that typically we've done in the past for the organizations we work for. Where are we strong in our skills? Where have we got skills gaps? As at an individual level, but also at a departmental level. What's our heat map? Where are we now and where should we be? The extraordinary thing is with this, that wherever I travel in the world, because we've been doing this, we've just relaunched it, we've been doing it for 6 years, I have people come up to me and say, Don, I want to thank you for the capability map. I'm using it with my organization and my team, and we're really getting a clearer idea about where we need to develop ourselves. That does my heart a lot of good. I had somebody come up to me yesterday and say that here. 2 things I want to finish with, and then we're going to launch into a discussion and see how I can help you and serve you in your development of your team. You know, the British have got an awful fantasy that we still have an empire. And if you go to London, you'll find there are statues of lions all over the place. I don't even know where this one is from. It's just something I found on my camera. I thought, that's good. Leadership. I'll use that. We need to have the right skills in the department. No question about that. We need to have the right technology. Absolutely. But in every case study I've looked at where a program's been rolled out that's been successful, there's been 2 common factors I want to finish off with. One is leadership. You don't lead an organization, a group, by chance. You've got to have 3, I'd say, probably, characteristics. One, it's a clear focus and aim. Andrew Jacobs ran the Learning and Development Department for a London borough. He found his training team was cut from 8 people to 1, himself. He could have just given up. He didn't. He turned around and said, right, I'm going to change everything we do. He got managers to produce their own learning. He refused to produce any more courses. He found resources that were useful for people, changed the entire delivery mode, and guess what? Not only was it able to deliver an equivalent service, people actually liked it better and performed better as a result. He was clearly focused and he took the actions necessary to get the job done. By the way, he's on the cover this month of Training Journal in the UK, and he now runs learning at HMRC, our tax inspectorate in the UK. So he's, you know, if you do a job well, you can find it does pay off for you in the long run. So clear focus for leadership is crucial. Great leaders also, they don't micromanage. They find a good team and they let them get on with it. Bob Sharp was at Black & Decker here in the US. Back in 2010, he had people creating user-generated content, salespeople making videos, and he didn't go out, he didn't tell them how to do it. All he did was make sure the quality was good enough when it came back. Continued that when he worked for Hershey. He was rolling out an LMS. He knew exactly how to roll out an LMS, but he didn't do it himself. He got somebody else to do it for him, Megan Garrett, and she did a great job rolling it out because she was believed and supported by her manager, Rob. Finally, of course, as well as a clear focus, as well as not micromanaging but getting a great team, and as well as, sorry, the third thing is, great leaders really understand the business. Oh God, it's so obvious, but it is after all why we're here. Remember that reason, that St. Paul's message, we help individuals and organizations fulfill their potential. Matt DeFeo at Tektronix did an extraordinary job. Huge organization. He could have done any one of thousands of things. He focused on one thing. People bringing back power tools that had a warranty on that were incorrectly being returned. Seems strange, but he knew from the business that was where his focus needed to be. He didn't do a complicated VR, AR, micro-learning solution. He gave people a performance aid. And he got managers involved. They changed the return rate from 4%, with a lot of things that were being returned invalid, to 1.8%, and saved the company $35 million over 2 years. Because he knew where to focus his energy. And that's just leadership. He actually had an LMS as well, but you get the sense that he would have done it anyway. So leadership's important. But the other thing, and the trouble with the leadership is it sounds very grand and very self-important, but we can't do it all by ourselves. You've got to have partnerships. You've got to work with other people to make it happen. And partnership is completely natural. We do it all the time. We shouldn't somehow leave it at home when we come to work. We could do it when we are trying to work with the IT department, the HR department, and every great implementation I've seen does exactly that. We could also do it when we're working together with our colleagues outside the organization. This is a great opportunity to mingle and partner with people in L&D outside your organization. We can do it when we're building foundations for the future or when we're building a sandcastle. That's 1966. That's me. I'm the cute one on the right. My sister is 7. She's wondering why she's stuck with me on the beach. She's partnering, she's helping me. And she's now an educational psychologist doing great work in Manchester. We can't do it all by ourselves. We've got to work with other people. If you need the resources that I've been mentioning here, you can get it from my website. You can, of course, also download the deck from the app. I'll go back. I see a lot of people taking photographs of that. I'll go back to that URL in a second. The factory that I worked in is not this factory here. This is a stock image because, of course, the factory I worked in no longer exists. It's prime real estate on the river in London. Get real. It's been knocked down. It's been turned, of course, into apartments. And this is what it looks like today. That's the location where the factory was. If this company, which is a high-tech company, can smartly work out, you know what, we can make more money out of that land by selling it and moving our operations elsewhere, fair play to them. We can do the same. Julius Caesar and Shakespeare I started with. Shakespeare said, didn't he, there is a tide in the affairs of men which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. I didn't tell you what happens next, because what he says next is, omitted, all the voyage of their lives is spent in shallows and in miseries. I don't want to end the presentation on a downbeat note, but you get the point. We've got a challenge we can rise to here, and we should do. Or we can carry on doing what we're doing, and other people will do all that great stuff that I've been talking about. Get the technology, get the skills, get the leadership, partner with other people, and we will make it happen. I'm Don Taylor. I'm on LinkedIn, as you've seen. I'm on Twitter. It's my privilege to serve you in developing your departments. If I can help you in any way, either now or in the future, contact me, let me know. I'll be delighted to get in touch and to help you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Madeline, it's over to you, isn't it? You're running the whole show now. I'm going to go back because I think people were interested in that URL there. Now, what are we doing, Madeline? We can either have Q&A or we can have people discuss things. Would you like to just discuss things on tables and that's it? Or do you want to have some Q&A and throw some questions at me?
Why don't we take a vote? So, raise your hand if you would like to do small group discussion at your tables.
Okay.
Well, I think Q&A
So that whole partnership discussion, working together thing, that message really hit home. Okay, who'd like to ask a question then? Nobody. Okay, so we're caught in that nether world between not talking and we have a question. Okay, we've got a boombox and so on.
Thank you, great presentation. I'm curious, what is the role of the instructional designer? Do they pivot to lead curator, or how are their skills relevant in this future vision?
So I'm getting a bit of echo, but the question is, what's the role of the instructional designer? A lot of people waving their arms around saying, instructional designers are no more. I think it depends what you mean. And if the role of the instructional designer is to create complex courses and delivery mechanisms for knowledge, I think that role is still here, but it's diminished. Those skills that we need, by the way, those 25 skills, are still here. We still need to do them all. That includes the classroom, still, it includes designing courses, but it is diminished. However, it doesn't mean that that's over. Instructional designers, people who understand how people learn, how to make sure that content is appealing, how to get people to come and engage with it, there is still a role there for sure. So when I do my summary of that social media experiment, I will absolutely be using some ID techniques to write it in a way that is compelling. I'll use distribution mechanisms to make sure people know about it. It's not classic instructional design, but it doesn't mean the road has suddenly finished. There is work for everybody. Got one in the back? Hey, look at that. This is partnership. Look, it's literally a meeting of minds.
So I'd be curious how you structure a learning and development organization to achieve this, sort of to piggyback on the question of instructional designers, if you had...
Okay, so there's a really weird situation in this room, which is that the echo is coming from the back of the wall and here as well. How do you structure the department? Is that the question? Okay, a totally good question, and there's more than one way of doing it. You can absolutely structure a department as it is now, and we can have a team that is under a manager, and they are effectively compartmentalized away from the organization, and you can still do a good job with that. But increasingly, I'm seeing organizations recognize that there's a looser hierarchy, and I'm going to talk about something in the middle, then I'm going to talk about something a bit way out there. So the bit in the middle is, you have a core team who are the leader of L&D, you have other people who have got key roles, and the key roles will be, this might sound a bit strange, marketing and communications, and project management, and performance consulting. That doesn't sound like the key roles at the moment, but those are the core roles. Around those, there'll be ancillary roles, and we'll partner with other people to bring those people in when needed. And it might be they work full-time for the organization, but they're in another department, or it might be they're contractors. Beyond that, there's another layer, which is people who are observers who come in to give their advice. And that team then sits in an ecosystem of people where you've got relationships with other departments, HR and IT in particular, and you've got a governance up to a top level where you've got a learning and development, typically committee, which has high-level people in to give you air cover against any issues, and so on. And it also, importantly, has links with vendors, because vendors are part of the partnership equation. And if you put that one to one side, then really out there, you've got learning and development departments in the future which are almost entirely outsourced, and it consists mostly of one senior leader and a bunch of managers in the organization who are actually doing most of the work and who are kept up to speed with what's happening and what they need to do in their roles as managers, and their role as a manager is seen as being an integral part of that is developing people. Now that's a bit out there, not many people are doing that, but lots of people are doing the one in the middle at the moment. Does that answer the question? Yes, no? Sort of? Okay, we'll have a coffee afterwards, you can pick my brains further and talk about that more.
Do you have any recommendations for how you would use curated content for things that you need to standardize? Like in healthcare, you may not want everyone contributing to a standardized process.
Yeah, curation, very powerful tool, but there's a payoff against risk, and you want to make sure I spoke to a lieutenant commander in the British Navy. He said to me, Don, when my guys go into battle, I don't want them having learned how to fire their guns off Wikipedia. You need to have a standardized way of doing some stuff. And some stuff you're just not going to curate, because that is the way you do it, guys. But I was listening to Rob Lauber of McDonald's yesterday. Now, McDonald's is a really focused, process-driven organization. But he pointed out that they are very keen on hearing from people running stores about what's working for them. And precisely because they're so focused on efficiency, they look for efficiency savings everywhere. So if they can get the feedback that there's a better way of doing something, they'll take it. So I think that the answer is that the mechanism of curation needs to be suitable for what you've got. If you've got a mechanism which involves you being able to effectively poll people for information and get their thoughts through the medium of learning content, and then from that go back and say, we did it that way, but now we have a new way of doing it, that's perfectly legitimate and it's actually in everybody's benefit. And a good example of that actually is, actually it's not curation, sorry, it's AI, but so I'll leave that one. Okay. Madeline, where are we? I think there's a conspiracy to make Madeline walk as much as possible.
Yeah, I had a question about interdisciplinary sort of partnerships. Do you think there are other disciplines outside of learning that maybe L&D should be partnering with, whether it's marketing or human-centered design, things like that?
I kind of get there's a subtext behind this question, which is you think you know what the answer is, and I would agree with you. Go on. Sorry, the question was, if I'm correct, where else can we learn from, yeah?
Yes.
So who else would you suggest? And I think you're right.
Well, I think marketing is very mature in analytics and analyzing the effectiveness of messages they get out there. So I think that's a discipline maybe L&D could partner with. And then I think user experience design is another one.
Totally. And here's the point. As I said, we can't do it all by ourselves, so we have to partner with other people. We can learn from them. We can get people in and do work for us and learn from those who are doing it. We can't learn everything that a great Marcoms person knows over lunch or even over one engagement. We can learn some of the right ways to think about things and some of the questions, so the next time they come in and we work with them, we can do it better. So I think marketing communications is absolutely one. Another one is totally analytics. What questions should we be asking? And typically we don't have those skills in L&D at the moment, so we should be getting those in. All of the technical skills. I mean, the people that I've seen do the best learning technology implementations are always people who, unbeknownst to them, it's a common factor across the implementations, they have a strong relationship with IT. And maybe they used to work there. Maybe they just happen to have developed that relationship over time. But it makes a huge difference. And having that relationship, we can learn from them, but actually, you know what, the main thing is you've just got the relationship and you speak a common enough language that you can get things done. And human-centered design, that is so essential, I would totally agree that we should be pushing ourselves to the limit in that one. With IT, we can't hope to learn everything. But with design work, and when you say human-centered design, I'm assuming you mean going and looking at what thing people actually do, really engaging people, getting the feedback and iterating to improve products and processes to improve performance. That's our job. So we should totally be partnering with those people and learning as much as we can to improve ourselves. That's a kind of long answer. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question. I've been listening throughout the conference, and I keep hearing that the role of the instructional designer is going to change or be minimalized. And I run a team of instructional designers, and I kind of cringe when I hear that. And bear with me for a minute, because we do have consultants that interact with the business, and typically they ask that there's a training need and they bring it to us, and they really haven't identified the needs. They say, oh, we want a 30-minute e-learning course. And it's not until we have time to actually speak with that client and find out that, no, you don't actually need a 30-minute e-learning course, that we could actually engage and determine the needs. My fear is that if we have a model of consultants without a strong ID background, if you will they ask the right questions? Will they address the 5 moments of need? Will they ask those and will learning be misdirected is, I guess,
Okay.
and how can we prevent that?
So the question, if I can play it back, the question is, we need to engage with the business. How do we engage with the business properly if we don't have an ID background?
Correct. Are they going to ask the right questions? And are they going to assume that, oh, we don't need an instructional designer here? We can just look at the needs and determine which way this learning solution should go. I don't know if anybody else has that fear or have people that are learning professionals, but they're not necessarily learning strategists or designers, or they're not architects of learning.
Well, I'm not sure that I would get an instructional designer to have that conversation. So for me, the questions to be asking are performance consulting questions, which start at quite a high level, and we determine, first off, what's the problem? And the problem may have nothing to do with training or learning whatsoever. That's very often the case, as you know. Then after that, we can drill down and find out what the pain point is. What are people doing? What should they be doing? What's the cost implication? Is it skills, knowledge, environment, opportunity? Underneath that, then we can start exploring some things now and possibly get to a solution. But I'm not convinced that the right level, it may be that ID people would have the right skill set there to ask the initial questions, but for me it's a performance consulting engagement, first off. And what we're doing is we're trying to find out, why are we having a performance issue here? What are we trying to solve? It may be that an ID has the right skill set for that. Great. It's also quite possible somebody who has no design background whatsoever would have the right skill set to ask that, because it's about asking questions well, listening for what's being said and not being said. And that's not necessarily the same as ID. However, I do think you're right. I think the role of the ID is changing, and they should be very well placed to ask those questions, but I would be tempted to make sure that they've got some performance consulting input first, because otherwise their propensity may be to go down the path of delivering a training solution, and that might not be the answer at all. So I think, yeah, get your IDs, give them some extra skills, and put them out to the business. That's rather a long answer, but I hope that sort of makes sense. It's always a tough gig when lunch is looming on the horizon. I don't want to stop anybody getting a... I always say this quite seriously. I forgot to say it at the beginning of my talk. I always say, guys, you can always make more money. In theory, you can always make more money. Of all the resources we've got, we can't make any more time. So I would like to say thank you for spending this time here in this room with me. And if you think the best use of your time now is to say, oh, that's it, great, I've spent my time well, but I've got an extra 7 minutes now that I can use well, getting to the head of the lunch queue, or making that phone call I've got to make and there's something pressing, I am totally good with that. My position, as I say, is to serve you in developing your departments and your profession. So I think, and we're going to wrap it up there, I want to say, once again, thank you very much. And to repeat, I am Don Taylor, and if you need to get in touch with me, it's Donald H. Taylor on everything. If you didn't have the question or you couldn't think of it now, look me up on Twitter, on LinkedIn, ask me, and I'll do my best to answer it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.